rise. The Court of the Second Judicial Circuit, Criminal Division, is now in session. The Honorable Judge Rosas presiding.
Everyone but the jury may be seated. Ms. Moreno, please swear in the jury.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will truly listen to this case and render a true verdict and a fair sentence to this defendant?
I do.
Ms. Moreno, what is today's case?
Your Honor, today's case is the State of Washington versus Clark.
Is the prosecution ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, members of the jury, my name is Maribel, and I will be representing the state of Washington in this case. It is clear that Gary Clark, with deliberative premeditation on the 27th of April 2010, went to Seattle Grace Hospital with the purpose of killing Dr. Derek Shepard, Dr. Richard Weber, and Dr. Lexi Gray. He walked into the hospital with a loaded gun and extra ammunition. Mr. Clark ended up killing 18 people and injuring an additional 11. I hope that the jury will find the evidence to support that Mr. Clark was sane at the moment of the crime.
Your Honor, members of the jury, my name is Mary and I will be representing the late Gary Clark in this case. Mr. Clark was an ordinary man who tragically lost his wife Allison, a loving husband, a pillar of the community, who was left heartbroken following the death of his wife. The shooting at Seattle Grace Hospital was an act committed by mental instability.
Prosecution, you may bring to the court your first piece of evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. I present to the court evidence A.
I didn't plan to shoot all those people.
Of course you didn't. You were sad. You were grieving.
I only planned to shoot Dr. Shepard. And Dr. Weber. And you.
In this video footage, you can see that Mr. Clark was aware of what he was doing during the time of the shooting. I present to the court evidence B, a state and federal law insanity test. Let's go over this together, shall we? Question 1. Did the person know the difference between right and wrong? Mr. Clark showed that he knew what he was doing was morally wrong and criminally wrong. Question 2. If the person knew the difference, was he able to appreciate the criminality of his actions or control his conduct to conform to the requirements of the law? Mr. Clark presented a moment where he excused the life of another individual, another doctor. He let her go away without getting shot or murdered.
Defense, you may now bring into the court your first piece of evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. I present to the court evidence C.
How is she?
She did great in there. She was a total trooper. The surgery went great. We got the tumor, all of it, with good margins.
Oh, thank God. Oh, Dr. Gray, thank you. Thank you so much. My wife keeps telling me I need to be more manly about all this. I mean, after all, she's the one with the cancer. She's afraid I'm the one who won't make it.
I think you're doing just fine. You both are. Would you like to see her?
Can I?
She should be waking up any minute.
I presented the court this video as a reference of who Mr. Clark was as a person prior to the death of his wife. I now present the court evidence D. In order to be diagnosed with major depressive disorder, you must meet 5 or more symptoms on this list. Mr. Clark presented 6 of the symptoms at the time of the shooting. Depressed mood. During the time of the shooting and relatively straight after the death of his wife, he was in a depressed mood, and this was shown at the time of the lawsuit against the hospital and at the time of the shooting. Loss of interest. After the death of his wife, he had no motive to keep on going on. His only motive that kept him going was trying to find justice for his late wife.
Prosecution, you may now bring in your second piece of evidence.
I present to the court my next piece of evidence, evidence E.
Excuse me. I was asking if someone could tell me where I could find the
I'm
chief.
sorry, sir, if you could just give me a minute.
In this video, you can clearly see how Mr. Clark had the clear intention of finding Dr. Derek Shepard and killing him. I now present to the court evidence F. In the state of Washington, one must meet certain criteria to be granted not guilty due to insanity. This criteria is that the individual must be unable to tell right from wrong and must be unable to understand their actions. Mr. Clark had a set plan from the beginning, and he followed that plan once he arrived at the hospital. He went on a search for Dr. Derek Shepard and the other doctors that treated his wife.
Defense, you may now bring in your second piece of evidence.
I present to the court evidence G.
Yes or no? In or out? Up or down?
Freedom is ours as long as we escape.
Mr. Clark showed clear symptoms of major depressive disorder. He was in so much pain that he killed himself in order to deal with that pain that he felt inside. I now present evidence H. According to the McNaughton rule, at the time of the committing of the act, the party accused was laboring under such a defect of reason from a disease of the mind. There is evidence to support that he suffered from major depressive disorder, therefore making him not guilty to the charges.
Both the prosecution and the defense have now rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their final arguments. Prosecution, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the jury, today you have seen evidence of Mr. Clark's sanity during the time of the crime. I would like to remind you of some important information that you should consider in your decision. With the video footage I presented to the court today, you can see how Mr. Clark was sane. He created a plan and followed the plan, and now 18 people are dead. Mr. Clark needs to face the consequences of his actions. Please find the defendant mentally sane.
Defense, you may proceed with your closing argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the jury, today you have seen evidence of how Mr. Clark suffered from mental instability at the time of the shooting. I would like to remind you of some important information that you should keep in mind while making your decision. These facts include that Mr. Clark was presenting signs of a mental illness, to be specific, major depressive disorder. These signs were unnoticed and a tragedy occurred. I hope that the jury will find my client not guilty due to insanity.
Members of the jury, you have all heard the testimony concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine the facts. You and you alone are the judges of the fact. Once you decide what facts the evidence proves, you must then apply the law as I give it to you to the facts as you find them. In just a moment, the bailiff will take you to the jury room to consider your verdict. One of the first things you will want to do is select a foreperson that will preside over your deliberations, the way that a chairperson does at a meeting. It will be the foreperson's duty to sign the verdict form when you have agreed on a verdict. Whatever verdict you render must be unanimous. That is, each and every person must agree on the same verdict. The bailiff will now escort you to the deliberating room.
All rise.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
What say you?
We find the defendant insane.
Thank you, jury, for your service today. Court is adjourned.